When I was little, my 95-year-old grandpa wanted to teach me how to play chess. Every time he captured a piece, he'd say, "That's free parking, give me a piece of your allowance." And he'd do this through the course of the game until he had my whole allowance. Eventually I'd say, "Jesus, Grandpa, that's not even a chess rule, it's a Monopoly rule." He'd peer into my little 8-year-old eyes and he'd say to me, "Andy, that rule's not from the game Monopoly. That rule is from the game of life." Holy shit, was my grandpa ever a dick. Everybody, today we're learning how to play chess, a game of war, strategy, and logic. It's also one of the most relaxing games I've ever played. For fuck's sakes, cat, no!
Don't touch the pieces.
Look at me.
Don't touch anything. Look at me.
So sit down, crack open a beer.
I will stop feeding you. Do you understand?
Relax, do what you gotta do, lock your cats in a room, or if you can't do that because you live in the shittiest bachelor apartment in the world, and just put up with them, because today we're learning chess. We're gonna start with the worst of all the pieces, which is the shitty ass little pawn. Let's consult the How to Do Shit database and see what they're all about. Each player gets 8 pawns. That's a lot of friggin' pawns, I gotta tell you. Pawns are usually dying left, right, and center. There's not much you can do about that. Pawns are usually the last ones to kill something and the first ones to die. Alright, let's take a look at how they move. That's it. Oh, we're gonna... No, please. No. God damn it. So pretty pathetic, really. Pawns attack basically the same way they move, one space at a time, except instead of going forward, they really change up the game and they go diagonal. God damn it. One thing you really gotta watch out for is people who try to attack forward. This will happen if you're in kindergarten. Just be careful and don't do it. This is the Rook, or as stupid people call it, the castle, or something. I don't know. The Rook is fast as fuck. He can go as many spaces as you want in any direction, as long as nobody blocks him. Like I said, the Rook can move forward and left and down and backwards as much as it wants until it hits another piece or kills another piece. What I usually see a lot of people doing is using the Rook to scare or bully the other player into moving their pieces out of the way. And he attacks the same way he moves. So he's pretty friggin' powerful. Big step up from the pawn, I gotta say. Fuck. The knight is probably the piece that most people struggle with at first because of its movement. It moves in the shape of an L. I know here it says that it moves 3 forward and 1 left. It can also move 1 forward and then 3 in the other direction. You'll see in the video how they move a little fucky. He's also capable of doing this in the other direction in... Wait a second. Oh, for... No. I knew this game was fucking racist! It is also the only piece in the whole chessboard that can jump over other pieces, which is pretty fucking useful for just getting around the board really quickly. Knight attacks any piece at the end of its route. It's by far one of the most useful pieces because of the way it moves. People don't see it coming very often. The bishop.
He looks like an apple.
Bishop moves, diagonally, I guess. Just like the rook. He can move in any direction. Left, right, backwards. But diagonally, instead of straight. It's really kind of a cop-out piece. I mean, he's nowhere near as cool as any of the other pieces. He's just sort of a rip-off of the rook. He's not as cool as Bishop from Aliens. So, I don't know. Least favorite of my pieces, honestly. Even worse than the pawn. Was that ever fucking scary, eh? As it should be. The queen is probably the deadliest piece on the board. It can move in any direction ever, any amount it wants, and then fuck up anyone it hits. If you lose your queen, you're pretty much fucked. I mean, not really, but you'll see. I mean, it can attack pretty much anywhere. Like, when the queen comes out, shit is going down. I mean, she's pretty much like that pigeon lady off of Home Alone 2. Like, Kevin's wandering around in that park, and she comes out, and he didn't know what the hell to do. So if you thought that the pawn was disappointing, wait until you see the king. Basically, you know, like Aragorn at the end of Lord of the Rings, how awesome a king he is. Well, imagine that, but just like do the opposite of that. Like not good, is what I mean. Anyways, let's take a look at how he moves. So one square in any direction. Yeah, it's better than the pawn, right, but you expect that from the pawn. This is the king of the world, of the chess world, of the chessboard. I mean, come on. Ow, Jesus, what? Okay, and, yeah, okay, so, where are the pawns? Oh, okay. So, he attacks the same— oh my god, that's blood. Those real? Or is this simulation real? So he attacks one. This is pretty fucked up, but he attacks in one direction, any direction, just like he moves, and basically that's it. Fuck's sakes. So let's talk about how to set up the pieces here. So your first row is your pawns, you know that from earlier. Second row from the outside, or from the inside out, is your king and your queen. Your queen is always on her own color, so the black one's on the black square. Then you get your bishop in there, and then your rooks, or your knights, sorry. And then you get your rooks, and that's pretty much it. So we've learned how all of these friggin' things move and attack. Let's see some of the special moves that they can do, and you'll notice that the pawn is actually a little less useless now, but only under certain criteria, which is what that shitty little graphic in the corner says. So on its first move, a pawn has the option of moving 2 spaces. It's pretty cool. Every pawn can do it at least once. After that, they have to move 1 space for the rest of the game. So here's a little lesser known pawn movement. It's called Passant. That's French. I don't. Hey, what the fuck? Just a sec. What the fuck does this say? Okay. Yeah. In Passant. Whatever. Basically, if someone decides they want to move up 2 squares with their pawn there, and the enemy pawn or your pawn is in the position that the black pawn is in right now, it sounds confusing, then you can kill that pawn while he's passing, or in passing, or in passant, French. So then you basically replace the square that the pawn would have been on if it had only moved 1 square and not its special move. This is the only chess move where you replace the square that a piece was not on after attacking it. Let's take a look at this pawn. Today's a very special day for this pawn because he's about to receive his first promotion. This happens when a pawn reaches the end of the board without being killed. When he finally gets there, he enters what we call at How to Do Shit the chess promotion cycle Ultima to 4000B. So during this promotion, the piece can turn into anything that has been captured in the game. That includes the bishop, the knight, the rook, and even a queen. Good fuck. A queen. Can you imagine? You can only have 1 queen on the board, however, because your queen has to have first been captured before this process, or before he can be promoted to that piece. The choice of which piece you get promoted to is entirely yours and not your opponent's, so don't let them bullshit you into that nonsense at all. This is called castling, and it's done when the king and the rook switch places, and it can only be done if neither pieces have moved that game. One little rule in chess is that white always goes first. It's not racist or anything. You just take turns to do rock, paper, scissors, and the loser can be black, I guess. That sounds racist. So casual players don't usually do this, but if it's really important to you and you're one of those people, you can actually keep track of points in chess. Each piece is worth a certain amount. Looking at the pawn, it's worth only 1, not very significant at all. And the knight and the bishop together are both worth 3. Rook is worth 5. And of course the queen is worth more than all of those, worth 9. So king is a little different since it's sort of like the golden snitch of chess. That's a Harry Potter reference. It's actually technically worth infinite points because you win the game when this piece is captured, which leads us into our next segment. Oh, that's a good segue. Don't ruin it by talking. What are you doing? Stop it. The object of chess is to kill the other person's king. So you're going to hear terms like check and checkmate, and we're going to go through what those mean. So here's the scenario. A rook moves in and can kill the king in the next turn, but obviously the king can escape in all of these different places. So that's basically what check is. It's when the king is vulnerable to attack, but has the possibility of escape in the next turn. So checkmate is a little different in that instead of being able to escape, the king is actually just fucked and will die. Checkmate is your end goal. You can't win chess unless the other person is in checkmate. So I'll go through a few examples of checkmate. So here you see that a king is under fire from this bishop, and he can't move that way because the bishop, and he can't move this way because of the queen, and obviously he can't move left because the knight is there. So he's trapped. He can't move. He's in checkmate. Here's the king being fucked by a rook, and his escape is either down or diagonal, and he can't do either of those things because there is a queen blocking his movement to those spaces, so he is also trapped and in checkmate. Here we got a classic checkmate move. There is a rook attacking the king, but the king can't move anywhere at all because his fucking pawns, useless as they are, have trapped him and are basically feeding him to the white man. So that's the video. I mean, that's the end of the game. Once the king is fallen, then the game is over. So is this video. Subscribe to me.